just me and you. Yeah, feels like something new. Ooh, every time we move. Yeah, so when I step away and she comes out my way, it means she's trying to play, it means she wants to taste, but that's just what the chase is. My hands on your waist, and baby we gon' sway. So come on. My name is JJ Melendez, but people from this time period know me as JJ from the future. I am interested in discovering the beauty and certainty that I knew in the world as a child. I describe it as being baptized Catholic and basically being in search of that same reverence. And so the art that I make tries to find significance and truth, and which is really hard to do when the whole system that we live in consumes anything that you make, and I think it reflects the thinking of the times. It definitely reflects popular political theories like liberalism. The philosophy of the era is for sure humanism, and now it's transhumanism. We're at the cusp of the AI movement, and we're at the peak of the hype wave. So it feels like AI is gonna absorb us into it. I don't think the hype is. Hopefully, it's not all that. But I do think that it's an interesting moment to be someone who's making art.
So I have a few questions that I want to ask you. Mythology plays a big role in your pieces. How do you see those myths in your art and in your life?
Wow, I love that question because I recently had my show. It was back in January 27th. I had my first art show. And I was reflecting on not the work itself, but how we would talk about the work. How my relatives and my friends would reflect on the fact that, oh yes, I have a cousin or a nephew or a friend in Austin that's making work. And in that remembrance, I mean, in using that word incorrectly, but in that remembering, we are inventing and seeking for those same archetypes that we learned. And mythology, I'm not going to philosophize about mythology because people have done it a lot, and I'm not here to lecture people. I'm not one to lecture people about mythology. I can only say that I feel that when I think about how we are all introduced and indoctrinated into mythology is like Disney Channel movies on VHS tapes. And that's a whole area to explore, but I mean, Pocahontas, that's a myth, that's a legend, it's a symbol. And I think part of this show, the Lady Liberty, and I remember showing it to one of my friends and him saying, "Oh, it's interesting because the symbol of the Lady Liberty is this American thing, and it almost has come to mean the opposite of what it's supposed to mean." But I think that the very dangerous political tread that we have to walk is not necessarily that we disagree on ideas. It's more that we disagree on symbols and what they mean. I'm terrified more of the day when we can't use the word purple or orange to refer to the same thing. So I think myths do a couple of things. I think they bind us together as a population in a time and a culture. Largely, I think we have pop culture for our myths. Every single artist that we memify, it functions like a myth. And I can answer this question 10 different ways, but let's keep jamming.
Okay, awesome. No, this is great. Okay, so I noticed a lot of, you have orange, red, orange tones. What do those colors mean to you?
Yeah. So yeah, my pieces live in a color range. It's hard to say the next thing without totally appearing super crazy. But when I finally had enough money to go to therapy, I wanted to go to therapy because I couldn't figure out what in my life was absolutely certain. It's sort of weird to think, but it's almost every single relationship in my life, I felt the dynamic was I couldn't trust anyone. I couldn't trust any idea. Um, it's hard to point to any one reason why it was this way. Like I grew up in the border back in the 90s, but like in high school, like my existence was driving to school with a border patrol blimp in the sky every single day. And I couldn't help but think like, wait, what is this? Is this a city or is it like a police state where like what am I like what is so I started just questioning like my own existence and that trauma lived with me until for years and until very recently and I went to therapy and like I stopped when COVID started but the very last thing that my therapist said to me she's like it was just talk therapy and she said find one thing that you know for sure and then go from there and it took me like 2-3 years after when I was walking around in Austin on the east side of Austin and I was crossing this overpass like right before is it Ochoa, right before this Catholic church that's here, and I imagined this. I was listening to Nipsey Hussle, and then this like vision came to me. It was this very imposing figure, and the background was this like red orange hue, and meditated, wrote, and months later, I remembered realizing that as a child, like the color Crayola red orange, like that color, like I could draw any number of things, but the drawings weren't complete until I added a little bit of red orange. Like it just had to be there, like 100% had to be there, and like I felt more comfortable when the red orange was there. I thought also, I was like, okay, finally this thing is cool. It passes. It can exist with us. Mm-hmm. And I built from there. That's my favorite color. And then the rest of these, the rest of the visual articulations, they're more like experiments, really. But I have a background in design, and I wanted to craft symbols that if we were to make them in metal, if we were to make them if they were to take different forms, we could still express them, and they could still maintain their visual integrity no matter what medium they take. I'm experimental. I'm working on concrete with some concrete pieces now because I love the concept nature of what I do too. But that's why red orange.
That's awesome. Wow, like it's cool to kind of hear that it goes back to like living in the border and like me personally, I'm same. We both were raised in the border, and it is nostalgic. Like I always, from my experience, is a little bit different. I always thought I was the majority. So when I left the valley, it was a completely shocker, you know, but I feel like it's good that I was raised in that kind of environment because I feel like I don't go around thinking I'm the minority. I feel like me personally, I think we're all the same.